Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 and 12. So you guys, and again, Rod Talbert, most of you guys maybe don't know who he is, but he's a member of our church, one of our potential deacons. He made a joke last night, and that's exactly what I'm going to mention here. But how many of you guys have done school projects? I don't know how that works with homeschoolers, but public schoolers, you have a group project? All right, well, again, that stereotype of you have that one person who doesn't do any of the work but gets all the credit. Have you guys experienced that? Hopefully you guys were not that person. Okay. How did that make you feel?
Bad. Disappointed.
Disappointed? Did it seem kind of like, I'm doing all this work and then you're just kind of like taking the credit for it, right? Yeah. Okay. So that's something that we don't particularly like, because we want everybody to do the work, because that's part of it. And so a lot of times within the church we call it the 80-20 rule. I don't think Emmanuel is like that. I think it's a little bit more better than that, but there's plenty of churches where it's the 80-20 rule, and it simply means that 80% of the people, they come to church and they leave, and that's kind of it, and then 20% are the ones who are doing the setup, like when we have a fellowship and other types of activities, and putting in a lot of work, and then other people come. And so as a church, that's not ultimately what we want to be like. We want to be the opposite. We want to have 80% or more of the people serving in different capacities. And, hopefully less than 20% that are the ones that are kind of taking and consuming. And so within the local church, there are different roles. We looked at that a couple weeks ago, the role of pastor, the role of deacons within the church. We have a children's ministry director, Miss Francesca. We have women's ministry leaders. We have Sunday school teachers. We have all sorts of different roles or different positions, whichever word you want to use, for people within the church that are all doing something to help the church function. And it's the structure that God has given us. And so each of us has a different role within the church. Each one of you guys has a different role within your local church, whether it's Redeemer or Foursquare or Berean or wherever else you guys go. You guys have a responsibility to serve within your church. And nothing is going to hinder an organization or your family or your team or a church like you not being engaged, you not participating within the life of the church, okay? And so, again, we don't want to just be dead weight in the church that just show up and I'm a warm body in the pew and I'm here, but I'm not actually engaged. We want to be engaged people within the life of the church and actively involved within the life of the church. And again, as you guys go off to college, just like the showing up aspect of it, maybe you guys are showing up and you're like, I just have this conviction. My mom and dad are going to ask me questions about why I'm not getting involved in the church, so I'm going to be involved in the church. But secondly, the next step with that, and that's part of our discipleship pathway out there, that giant poster out there. The first part is worshiping biblically. God calls us and commands us to gather together. But secondly, he also calls us to serve based on our thing here. That would be the fourth point on our little poster out there. God calls us to serve within the life of the church. And so you guys are going to have to make that decision. Am I going to commit to being involved in a local church? But secondly, am I going to be committed to serving within my church, whatever God has gifted you with? Because the purpose of the church is not just to go and acquire knowledge and leave and go about my life. It's to grow in my maturity in Christ. And as we grow in our maturity in Christ, we see how God has gifted us so that we can then give back to Him. And part of giving back to Him is giving back to God's people. Okay? So Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 and 12, I will read it. And He, that's Christ, and He gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds, and teachers to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ. So this passage is part of how the church has been structured. In the first century, God established these individuals known as apostles. They were the 12 disciples of Jesus. They became apostles. The office of apostle no longer exists today because there's no apostles that exist today. They had a specific purpose in starting the church. Secondly, there were prophets, those who were given special revelation from God and then shared it. That also doesn't exist today because we have no new revelation from God. The Bible is completed and there's no new revelation. But what we're looking at is shepherds and teachers. which is really one role with two different outpourings. So as your pastor, I am both your shepherd, I'm supposed to protect you, but also to teach you. And then look right after the comma of teachers, to equip the saints. That's if you are a Christian, you are a saint. To equip the saints, that's number one. I am to equip you. And in order to equip you, you need to be engaged within the life of the church. You need to show up. But secondly, to equip the saints, not just with intellectual knowledge, but also to equip you for the work of ministry, okay? And so that is where we get to our big idea. If you want to go back to that again, because I'll read it even though you guys already wrote it down. Christians must. This isn't like an option. This is a command. This is an imperative. If I am a Christian, I must be connected to a local church if I am to be equipped with how to serve my local church and also my community as well. If I'm going to serve, I need to be connected. You can't serve people if you don't know the people, all right? That's kind of a necessary thing, all right? So look at verse 12 with me again. I am called to equip you by teaching you the Bible, but secondly, I am called to equip you for the work of ministry or the work of service so that you can serve within the way that God has gifted you. So that is the role of the pastors within the church. And then again, having that accountability of parents, of one another to be able to do that. So we're going to look at three main points that I have of why we should or why we are called to serve within the church. All right, so number one, did I have these points? Oh, I do. Okay, so number one, we are called to serve because God has gifted us to serve. All right? 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10. Somebody read that.
As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's faith.
Okay. Is that a suggestion or is that a command? Okay, thank you. Yes, it is a command. Use it. That is a command. Use it to serve one another, not serve yourselves, not serve your interests, just like each of you has a specific role on your team. For those of you guys that are in basketball, I don't even know the positions in basketball. Let's go with baseball. The catcher is not the pitcher. The pitcher is not the shortstop. The second baseman is not the third baseman. Every single person has a specific role, and especially in the major leagues, you're not going to have somebody who's playing a different position, infield or outfield, because they're probably better at the infield than they are at the outfield. Same thing with football, same thing with basketball, same thing with everything. Every single person has a specific position. Linemen on a football team are not receivers or quarterbacks or other types of special players, okay? So everybody has a specific role, and when we are in our role, that is how we are able to live out the way that God has called us to live. And in sports, for you guys, theater and dance, you are expected to execute your role. And when you do not execute your role, what happens? You have a turnover, your dance is sloppy, you forget your lines. Think about your context. It's going to hinder other people with you. If I do not show up and practice, I am going to harm my teammates in whatever area that you guys are in, sports, dance, theater, stuff like that, okay? And I already just talked ahead of myself. If you do not execute, what's going to happen? You're going to suffer, and the other people around you are going to suffer. Just like the school project. If you and a couple other people are doing all the work and then some person just reaps the benefits, you know, that brings a burden on you because you are doing extra work that you were not tasked with doing. And so when you neglect to gather together, we are not able to build the church up as efficiently or effectively as God would like us to, all right? So 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 19 to 21. But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them, as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need for you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. In this passage, Paul is giving us this imagery of a human body. You guys can look at one another and see your bodies. We all have different parts. We have eyes, we have ears, we have a mouth, we have all sorts of stuff like that. We have arms, we have legs. And Paul is telling us that every single person within the church is like a finger or like an arm or an elbow or an eye or an ear or a brain. Every single person has a specific role, just like every single part of our body has a specific role in the entire makeup of our body, okay? Take away your ability to hear or see or taste or smell, your ability to walk. All of those things. How would that affect you if you could not see or you could not hear or you could not walk effectively? It's going to hinder your quality of life. Katie's looking at my notes. It's going to hinder your quality of life. You are going to suffer in some capacity because you are not functioning to the highest of our ability. So if certain people think, Paul says also later on in this, if certain people think, oh, I'm more superior because I have this type of gifting, like I'm a pastor, so I'm more special than you. Paul's saying that's a terrible approach to say, like, since I'm a pastor, I have no need for anybody else. Since I'm the brain and I'm the most important part, I have no need for feet. Well, how is the brain going to get carried around in life if it doesn't have feet or if it doesn't have eyes to see where it's going? Okay, you kind of get what I'm saying? What if Caleb didn't run sound on Sunday mornings? Or what if Adric didn't run the camera? What if some of you guys who are in the nursery didn't do the nursery? What would happen if, you guys know what Embrace Grace is? Miss Sherry runs it. It's a ministry for pregnant women who, most of them, their boyfriend or whatever is not involved. Sometimes they are, but it's mainly for a lot of single women. Or Katie and Emma, and Liam, their mom, and also Tim's mom, Jill and Jen, they are a part of the Pregnancy Resource Center. These are different ministries connected to the church. What happens if these individuals were not a part of these types of ministries? They would not exist. What would the quality of life be with these people, either within the church or within our community, if these types of ministries didn't exist? It would be terrible. Their absence would lead to a lower quality, within the church. And so we need people serving within the life of the church in every capacity, right? Some people are called to the nursery. I have no desire at all to be involved in the nursery, so bless you guys. I do not like little kids, not in that way. But I know, hey, there's no partiality. My kid, I'm sure I'm going to love him, but it's like, you're also really annoying. So I like you guys. You guys are the perfect age, all right? This is a great age, so this is why God has called me to be a youth pastor, okay? Not everybody is like that. There are different people. We have people who run the meal train because they love to cook. We have people who are greeters on Sunday because they love to greet. We have people who are a part of the coffee bar ministry now. Andrew's a part of that. And if you're not, find a way to get connected. There's a list of different ways that you can get connected to the life of our church right on that table out there if you guys are looking for more information. And it may not be glamorous. Maybe it's, shoveling snow or installing a water heater for somebody or whatever, but that's how we can serve within the life of the church. So number one, we're called to serve because we have been gifted with abilities to serve. And I see that with you guys. I don't know how to run sound. I don't know how to run any of that back there. There's tech people like some of you guys that know that and understand that. If you want me to patch a hole in the wall, I can do that. Patch it up and make it look like it never happened. I'm a construction person. That's my skill. Each of you guys has different skills that are used by God to glorify Him. So number two, the number two reason why you guys are called to serve as believers, if you are a Christian, is because I can't do it all. I, Pastor Sean, your pastors, regardless of how many pastors you have on staff or elders that you have on staff at your church, we as pastors cannot serve the church. Are you all right back there? I'm kidding. We can't do it all. I'm one person if you guys didn't know that, okay? Like I raked the sand volleyball pit out there, which is a labor of love. There was big ruts before Wednesday, and I was out there raking, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like I could wait a lot more. I could wait a lot further into the future and just let a bunch of you, rake it up and it'd be done in like 5 minutes. But I did it, and it's a reminder of like this takes a lot longer when it's just one of me. And so the same thing with the church. If it's just me or just Pastor Sean or just your pastors, we're not going to be able to do it all. So look back at verse 12. Paul says that the pastor's job is to equip the saints, the Christians, for the work of service. And so biblically speaking, my primary job as the pastor is to equip you to serve in the role that God has gifted you. Okay, and that may sound a little odd to you. It's like, oh, are you trying not to take responsibility and serve? But if I am serving excessively, like the majority of my week is serving and not preparing to teach the Bible or preach the Bible, then I am doing a disservice to all of you guys because I'm not focusing on my role as your pastor. And the early church had this experience as well in the book of Acts. When the church was just beginning, was just a few, I don't even know how old it was at this point, but it was very young, a couple years, if anything. And they had an issue with the needs of the people within the church. And the apostles, those who did life with Jesus, they were being called away to help out with these different needs. And they're like, listen, we can't keep doing this. Like, our job is to preach the gospel. Our job is to plant local churches of believers so that the church can multiply and grow. And if we are not focusing on this part of our role, then we are going to ultimately, we're going to plop. We're gonna sputter out. I don't have the word there. We're gonna sputter out if we're not focusing on our role. And Acts chapter 6 verse 4 says that. The apostles were like, but we will devote ourselves to prayer and the ministry of the word. That's what your pastor should be doing primarily. Prayer and ministry of the word, which is studying the Bible to prepare to teach, whether it's on Sunday, whether it's on Wednesday, whether it's Bible studies and stuff like that. Because if it's flip-flopped and the majority of the time for the pastor is done serving, then I am not doing my job in equipping you to see your gifting so that you can serve within the life of the church. All right? So the primary role of the apostles was to equip. It was to teach the Bible, to pray for the people so that you can know, how can be a part of the local church and serve? And so again, we don't even need the Bible to think this through. We can just use common sense here. Can one person meet the needs of every single person within a church? Emmanuel is a pretty small church. We run about 185 people on Sunday. That's a pretty small church. Can one person or two people meet the needs of every single person going on in the life of the church? Or for you guys, whatever the size of your church is. Is that possible? It's not possible for me. It's possible for us as individuals looking out for one another. That's why we have deacons. That's why we have other people. But also, we just need members of the church that are not in any kind of official position to serve within the life of the church. Again, if my time is divided between serving and doing other types of stuff and running around town to help people out most of my time, and I'm not able to study the Bible, am I going to be able to effectively teach you guys and help you guys to grow in your walk? Yes, I'm not going to be able to do that. And so again, it sounds a little weird. You say that, and it's like, my job isn't to work in the context of serving the church. Pastors should be servants of the church in different ways, but it cannot supersede, it cannot go ahead of me first studying the Word. Okay? So, what does that look like? A couple simple examples. Fellowship Hall. Actually, again, Caleb and Cody did basically a ton 2 weeks ago with the Fellowship for the Pork. You guys were pouring lemonade and getting stuff ready with your dad and whatnot, but also a lot of you guys afterwards stuck around. You were breaking down tables and other types of stuff like that, putting away chairs and stuff like that, taking out the trash. All those types of things are necessary parts of the church. And if you have a couple people that are doing that, if everybody comes to the Fellowship Hall and 2 people stay to clean up, it's going to take a lot longer. And so it's been really awesome to see that every time we have a fellowship, there's like 20 people that stick around, and a lot of you guys, youth kids, to help out with that. Before I came to Emmanuel, I worked for an organization for abused women and children. I worked maintenance, and we'd have youth groups come every week, and they would do a week-long service project. They'd stay, and they would do different service projects, and as a construction person, I would often do a lot of the work, and then the youth kids would just kind of look at me. And after a while, I got really burned out working in the Texas heat. And I realized my job is not to do the work, it is to teach these students how they are to effectively do the work, which is really hard for me because delegating different work, hey, like Cody, you need to move tables. Reed, you need to move chairs. Xavier, you need to do this. Having each one of you guys do different things so that the fellowship hall or something that we have going on is coming together. That's hard for me because I feel like I'm not working physically. But the delegation of tasks is part of what a pastor does. And for me, hopefully, I can see what you guys are gifted in, and as we get to know each other more, and I can fit you into areas where you are gifted, like the praise team as well. I'm talking to Aiden Cole. He's one of our new leaders. We're going to reboot the youth questionnaire and have a meeting with those of you guys that are interested in that. But part of that is, hey, is Aubrey a good piano player or is she a good vocalist? Maybe she's better at one than the other. Being a good pastor is, how can Aubrey serve the praise team, the worship team, most effectively? Abby is a really good piano player. It's not good to put Abby on guitar, possibly. I don't know if you're good at guitar or not. It's not good to do that. So Abby is serving the church best when I am seeing her gifting, and I'm saying, Abby, you're good at the piano. Aubrey, you're good at vocals. And each one of you guys, Ashley, you're good at guitar. This is how you serve your peers in the youth group, but also within the life of the church. And so I need to know your gifting, and that means that you guys need to show up as well so that I can observe you, so that we can do life together, all right? All right, so last point as we begin to wrap this down in Mark chapter 10. Go back one more, sorry. We serve because the pastor can't do it all, right? But ultimately, Jesus modeled for us what true sacrificial service looks like. Mark chapter 10, verse 45 is one of my favorite verses. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus didn't come to be served, to be waited on. And that shows his humility. He served not just in giving his life, but also he served in the way that he interacted with people. We see that with him washing the disciples' feet at the end of his life, which was something that was meant for a slave person. Jesus got down and cleaned the dirty feet of his disciples, and he took the role of a servant in that manner, but also dying in our place on the cross. Jesus is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He is the most powerful being who is, and yet he served us in this way. And so don't you think it's a little bit arrogant for us if we think that we don't need to serve, and yet the King of Kings and Lord of Lords came and served, not just in dying sacrificially to atone for sin, but also in serving his disciples in washing their feet. And so even though Jesus died physically, us as Christians, we're called to die in a spiritual sense. We're called to die to our pride, to our desires, to the things that we want. Because if we just did it our way, we probably would never serve. That's just too convenient. That's too difficult. That's too dirty. That's too this. I don't want to do that. Okay? So we need to die to what we want and think about each other. Okay? So that would be my encouragement to you guys. Think about one another. How can I serve one another? Whether that's actually serving in an act of kindness or just saying something nice to one another. All right, lastly. Where's my water bottle? Oh, it's over here. Lastly, number 3. So number 1, we're called to serve because we're gifted. Or we're called to serve because we're commanded. Number 2, we're called because we each have been given a gift. Number 3, we're called to serve because it kills consumerism. Look at verse 11 and 12 again. Verse 12. My job as your pastor is to equip you to know the Bible intellectually, to apply it practically, but also so that you can perform works of service. Maybe your Bible translation doesn't say the work of service, but that's another meaning of it. The work of ministry or the work of service, to serve within your church. So serving kills consumerism. Who knows what consumerism is? Without reading my definition. What? Okay, America is a very consumeristic country. We want lots of products. I want my Amazon Prime so I can order whatever I want at the click of a button. The same thing can be true within the life of the church. Consumerism is this, what can I get out of this church? All right? I don't like the music at this church. That youth group is boring. That's consumer driven, all right? I don't like the worship of this music. I was talking to somebody about that last night. I was talking to Russell about that last night. People will leave a church based on the silliest things. I don't like the music, or I don't like this person, or I don't like that. That's a very consumeristic attitude, and it's a very flippant attitude to have. We are a church family that are supposed to be bonded together. It's not like we should just leave at the drop of a hat because the carpet got changed and we don't like the color of it, okay? That's a very consumeristic, me type attitude, and that's not the attitude that God wants us as believers to have. Instead of having a consumeristic attitude of, I don't like this, I don't like that, instead, ask yourself, what can I do in this area of the church? I don't like the music of this church. what can I do to give my gifting to the worship ministry to help? What kind of helpful suggestions? Maybe people aren't aware of what's going on that I can help suggest and better the youth ministry or the worship ministry or the preaching of this church instead of just complaining about it. A consumer Christian gives negative comments. They take the benefits of the church without ever giving back to the church. And that's a very self-centered view of being a part of a Christian. And it's a very other-centeredness view. Instead of, it's a very self-centered view. It's a very self-centered view. Other-centeredness is what we need to be. We need to be thinking about other people. We need to be focused on other people. And so as we grow in thinking about other people, we're going to have less time to consume in a selfish way and just take, and then leave and let other people do the majority of the work. And through this mindset, we grow as a family of believers to treat one another as a family, not just as people that we can use to get our own advantages and then leave. And I've quoted this verse a lot because it's one of my favorites. But do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in love consider others more significant than yourselves. Consider others more significant than yourselves. And one of the key words that Paul uses in this, there's a lot of good ones, but he says selfish. Do nothing out of selfish desire or ambition. Instead of being selfish, what's another good word? Humble, humility. To be humble is to think of yourself less often and to think of other people more often. Instead of thinking about what's most convenient for me or what's the easiest path, the path of least resistance, think about how God has gifted me in this particular moment to share what he has given to me. Again, like at a potluck or something like that. Don't just show up and eat all the food and leave. Bring a dish. Help break down a table or wipe a table or clean up some in the kitchen. Do stuff like that and be a servant because God has gifted us with specific gifts, but also just with common sense and courtesy gifts to help out at the end, all right? And it makes it easier for everybody and it glorifies God. Look out for one another. And that I will say for you guys as you get older and into your teens when you start thinking about a future spouse, that's one of the most important things that you can look for in a young man or a young woman for your future spouse. That person is a servant. If they never stick around and help out, if they never do anything to help the church, or don't help their parents out in any kind of way and stuff like that, if they're very selfish and consumer-driven, that may be somebody that is probably going to be selfish and consumer-driven in your future marriage, possibly. So look for the characteristic of somebody who is humble and sacrificial in how they serve their church, their siblings, their family, all those different types of things. That can be a very good indicator. It's not like the be-all, end-all indicator, but it can be a very good indicator of where a person is at in their maturity. All right? So serving isn't glamorous. There's a lot of things our deacons like John Lichtenwalder, Phil Seafang, all those individuals do, and many other people that are not given the role deacon or elder in our church. There's lots of things that people do in this church that people have no idea about. Serving isn't always glamorous. You're not always going to get attention for it and get recognized for it, and that's okay because ultimately God knows what you're doing, okay? So as I said at the beginning, as we wrap up here, the 80-20 rule is a very real rule within many churches of 80% of the people kind of enjoying the benefits of the other 20% in their work, all right? That isn't a concrete number, but that is very accurate. And oftentimes, the Christian church is like that. And the goal of this weekend and this lesson is to get you guys to see that you're not called to just be here. You're not called to just show up, but God has gifted you specifically to use you as an instrument within the church that He's placed you in, whether that's at Emmanuel or the respective churches that you guys are at. God doesn't call you to just show up. He calls you to serve because there is nobody like you guys. Okay, each one of you guys is unique in your own way. You have specific talents that only you have, and if you do not give those to the church, people are not going to receive those gifts. And so again, these three lessons are a list of not burdens, but expectations of how we as Christians, not just you, but me as well, how we are called to live within the life of the church. Because we're not just settling for the status quo of being a warm body. We want to be engaged, and as you guys go off to college, you have to make that decision of whether you're going to be committed to serving within the church. Talk to your pastor, talk to somebody in leadership, ask them, hey, like these are things that I'm good at, or what are some ways that I can serve? There's a sign-up sheet. Is there anything that I can do? And maybe there won't be a ton to do, but when the moment comes, they'll be like, hey, I know you're really good at this. Would you be interested in helping out with this? All right. God has called us to serve in his local church. Yesterday, he has called us, yesterday and every day, he has called us to show up to the church. And then this afternoon, we're going to learn about how and why we as Christians are to share the message of the gospel. So we got discussion time for the next half an hour or so, and then we'll come back in here and do Human Scrabble and a couple other games this morning, and then pizza for lunch, all right?